Welcome to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. You can see the streams coming down the racetrack. It is part of Superbikes at Road Atlanta and the 10th anniversary of the MotoAmerica Championship season. We are here now for the BellissiMoto Twins Cup Championship. This is race number 2 of the weekend. It is race number 4 of their season that's taking place here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. You can see the weather. You can see the rain. It's continued to fall all day. Temperatures right now in the mid-50s. Obviously, the humidity is very high. The wind also starting to pick up. But Roger Hayden here in the broadcast booth. We just finished the Junior Cup race. We saw those riders be able to make it around the racetrack. They were able to stay clean. What can we expect for Twins Cup?
I think kind of the same thing. You know, the Junior Cup race was really clean. All the guys got to see the track this morning. The warm-up was wet, so they should know what to expect.
Let's take a look back at what unfolded yesterday in the first race of the weekend. These were under sunny skies, Roger.
A lot of different conditions yesterday. See Rocco Landers there taking advantage of starting on pole. Gus Rodeo also with a really good start there on that second row. And Gus was trying to get himself toward the front. You see Dominic Doyle there as well. Alessandro DiMario there in fourth. He starts reeling this group in, and they were really just going back and forth. Dominic Doyle tried to lead. Then you see Rocco there making a lot of passes. He was so strong. Into turn 10, makes another move into turn 5. You don't see a lot of passes right there. Rocco set that up early. Dominic Doyle was able to get by him again. And throughout the whole race, these top guys were just kind of going back and forth, and Rocco looked really strong. Another really good pass there on the brakes into turn 10, and you could just see he's got a little bit of a gap. All the riders knew that he wanted to pull through that infield section, and Rocco was able to do it. Gus Rodeo second, and Alessandro DiMario third, and also a really good ride for Dominic Doyle. You know, disappointing to miss the podium, but he was right there in the fight.
Able to pick up some points, and you see the celebration from Rocco Landers. It was great afterwards when he did pull off of the racetrack and hand out some of his suit. He did the back flip on that. And look at these full results. There's Rocco Landers leading the way. Gus Rodeo finishing second. Alessandro DiMario able to gain those third place points, rounding out the podium. And then you mentioned it, Dominic Doyle right off of there in fourth.
Yeah, and Jack Roach there with the top 5. It's great to see him back, and Avery Dreher after the crash, and you see Rocco after the race.
There's that backflip we talked about.
He's been winning a lot here at Road Atlanta. It's his favorite track, so he's getting a lot of practice from the backflip.
And the fans over there were certainly ready for him. Take a look at the championship points. Told you that was the third round of their championship. They did run 2 races at Daytona. Gus Rodeo won both of those. He is able to still be in the lead of the overall points with 70, but Rocco Landers with the win yesterday, closing that gap, now only 14 behind Alessandro DiMario, rounding out the top 3. 25 points behind. You get 25 points for a win, Roger.
You can see Dominic Doyle there also fourth, a little bit out. A day like today when it's really wet and rainy, you could make up a lot of points if you're off.
BellissiMoto Twins Cup is brought to you by BellissiMoto, where the biggest names in custom bike building shop for parts. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
These are beautiful aerial shots of Road Atlanta, 750 acres. This racetrack was built into back in 1970. Roger, you've got several laps around here, several victories here at Road Atlanta. Take us around this racetrack.
A lot of elevation here at Road Atlanta. All the riders really love it. And when you see the track map come up, you'll see through the first part of the track how busy it is. From turn 1, it goes up all the way down. In between 4 and 5, we see right here the riders, it puddles up a little bit because turn 3 goes downhill up over here. Turn 5, you see the guys there trying to go up over this rise, get the power down. 6 and 7, some flat right-handers, and then that long back straightaway where we seen yesterday, guys drafting each other. Hard on the brakes down into turn 10, 11, and then up over the rise into turn 12. Really hard braking. Last corner when it's wet, front end gets down, it's hard to get the bike stopped.
We did see some riders struggle coming across turn 12 yesterday. Rocco Landers, he was one of them, but that was in the Mission King of the Baggers race. He had no problems during the BellissiMoto Twins Cup race number 1. Here is the starting grid. You see Rocco Landers. He is our pole sitter. Rossi Moore alongside him in second. He did not make the race yesterday, but he did go out in the morning warm-up. We expect to see him in his grid position, and Dominic Doyle rounding out that front row.
Yeah, Avery Dreher there they're inside the third row, and you can just see, you know, the names of the guys that keep getting a little bit closer.
Go back to row number 5. You got Tyler Duffy, Chris Parrish, and the 15th starting position. That's the last place that gains some points. So everybody wants to be ahead of there. They're in for the full season. Jeffrey Perk in 16. You have Ned Brown down in 17th. We've got a lot of riders, 24 positions being made up. Sonia Lloyd starting towards the back, but she's making her move to Twins Cup after the Royal Enfield Build Train race program that she was a part of.
Yeah, and it's been a tough weekend for her so far with a couple crashes, so hopefully she can have a really good race and end the weekend on a high note.
As you take a look now at Rocco Landers, he's made his way to that pole position, given the thumbs up. You see Gus Rodeo and that number 96 parked behind him. They all went out in the morning warm-up session, and then you look alongside, you see the M4 XStar Suzuki bike. That's the number 92 of Rossi Moore. He mentioned he did not make the race yesterday, but he was able to make the 4 laps in morning warm-up, and he was also able to get up to speed. In the rain this morning, he was second on the timesheet.
Yeah, really good warm-up for him, and even the whole weekend has been really solid. Unfortunately, he had that crash yesterday morning in qualifying, wasn't able to make that race. And I think one of the big stories is Rocco is known that he struggles in the wet, and I think that's something that he's working hard on trying to change. He was fast Friday morning and it was wet then, but not this wet. So it's going to be interesting to see in the warm-up. He was quick this morning. He was 5th. So, you know, it's something that he's working on. He wants to get better. He knows it's, you know, it could cost you the championship. You come here and have a bad race in the wet, comes down to a couple points, could be costly.
And this is going to be a quick start procedure. You saw how quickly everything unfolded. There was only one crew member out there for each of the riders as they're now off on their warm-up lap.
And it gives these riders the opportunity to see what turn 1's going to look like from where they're starting. And you can see all the riders just kind of not taking too many risks, wanting to see where the grip level is as they come up here through the second part of the chicane here at 3-4. Down into turn 5, they haven't seen this track since they were out in the warm-up. You see some guys are not worried about the paint. We'll go over the curbs. Some other guys are trying to avoid it. And as they get going through this lap, they're going to head down toward turn 5 where, you know, you can see the puddles. You can see it splashing up. It's going to give these guys the opportunity to see where the puddles are at and where they're at their worst.
This was an area we were focusing on this morning in the warm-up session where there was a decent amount of standing water. That's all seeming to continue to flow across the racetrack thanks to all of the work that's been done over the last several years here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. But you brought up a good point too, that MotoAmerica and their technical staff has worked with all of the racetracks, as many as possible, on the paints that surround the track.
Yeah, and MotoAmerica makes all the tracks now have the aggravated paint, and that, so it's not as wet as normal. It's not as slick, and it's even like on the apex, you see the curbs as well. They all have that paint where it's not as slick, where before when you hit that paint it was like ice. Now, you know, with MotoAmerica making those safety changes, the paint's a little bit slick still, but definitely rideable.
As the riders are coming around on this warm-up lap, Roger, put yourself back into their position. It's been raining all day. You did get to see the racetrack. What have you been thinking about from the warm-up to now?
Getting a good start, because visibility is going to be tough with that many riders out there, with the way it's raining, the spray. You don't want to push too hard that first lap. It's going to be a long race. There's going to be some people that, you know, really move forward toward the end and might take a mistake. Try to be patient, but get a really good start.
You say it's going to be a long race. Yesterday's race was 13 laps. That's what we were expecting today, but due to these conditions, we already did the quick start procedure rather than the full grid procedure. This race has also been shortened, so this one today will be a 10-lap challenge. You see the full field coming down now across start-finish line to find their spot on the grid. The red flag holding everybody, telling them it's still going to be just a couple of seconds. We're letting everybody get into position. What you're going to see on the left-hand side of your screen when it is time to go, you'll see the lights come up on the side, and as soon as those lights go off, Roger, it's going to be time to race. Revs are up. Lights are off. It is time to go racing for the second time here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. looks like the full field was able to get underway. Now Rocco Landers with a good start, leading everybody into turn 1.
Yeah, Rocco Landers with a great start there into turn 1. Let's see if everybody can kind of get through this first part of the track. When you're following, it's going to be difficult for these guys, and we'll see how they all make it through.
Jack Roach had a great start as well. He was right up there. He was able to get around Rocco Landers.
And Jack's been racing overseas for the last couple of years in Europe, so he has a lot of rain experience.
He was coming from the second row. He qualified in that 6th position, but look at him now pulling away.
He just looks a lot more comfortable. All the other guys are trying to figure out. I see Dominic Doyle now there in 3rd, trying to make a move on Rocco. You can see Rocco starting to get a train built up behind him. Some guys trying to get by, but Jack Roach is just confident, putting his head down and trying to see if he can make a break.
Dominic Doyle now slotting into 2nd. You mentioned the advantage that you get when you're out front. You look at the visor, that clear visor of Jack Roach, and you get that great shot of his face. It was a clean start for him, Roger, but he doesn't have anything in front of him. There's no spray, nothing to distract him.
And you can just see from him that the spray for the riders further down the grid, you can just see the spray that gets on your shield and makes it harder to see. Dominic Doyle has did a really good job through 6 and 7, getting a really good run, and was able to, close that gap down to Jack Roach. And now this just gives him the opportunity to be patient and follow Jack and see where the track is.
Sean Unvarsky on that 484, and yesterday we had a pack of 4 and 5 riders, Roger. Today this pack is much larger.
And you see Dominic Doyle already trying to make a move. He feels really good in the wet. Down in the turn 12, that's hard in the wet. Make it pass on the brakes and not blow the apex.
As Dominic, after that first lap, will be credited with leading this field as we now make our way back into turn 1. They've all seen the racetrack now in race conditions.
And now for Dominic, he's in a different spot. He's going to be in the lead, which is different. You start setting the pace. All the other guys can kind of set their speed off, how fast you're going. And now Jack gets the opportunity to follow Dominic. And Rocco's doing a good job right now in 3rd.
Yes, our pole sitter, Rocco Landers, he did have a great start, but by the end of that first lap, he's already back down into 3rd position. And now you see the gap that Dominic Doyle and Jack Roach are able to build on the rest of the field.
Yeah, Dominic has really gotten the lead right now. You can see that the first sector is going to be the best sector. I know it's early on in the race, but you can see what it's done through that first part of the track, the way he's able to kind of break that pack up. If he looks back coming out of turn 7, he's only going to see Jack Roach behind him.
This is the battle behind them. Rocco Landers has now been passed by Sean Unvarsky. Does this surprise you, Roger?
Not too much, because we talk about the rain being the great equalizer, and it always throws some other guys in the mix that you might not be able to see because he's comfortable in the wet. You see Gus Rodeo there also right there behind Rocco. I think Rocco would be his main target. That's going to be his championship contender. He doesn't have to win, but Gus definitely mentioned earlier he does not want to throw it away today.
And in terms of building confidence for the rest of the season and really getting out there in all of the conditions, that's the way you win a championship for these riders. They've just got to make the most of what they have today.
And, not take any unnecessary risks, but, other guys that aren't in maybe for the championship, they can kind of throw caution to the wind and not worry about if they crash and don't come home with any points.
Dominic Doyle, though, he was just leading across the start-finish line. We are now on lap 3 of 10, 7 laps remaining in this, but Dominic Doyle just showing everybody else in the field that he is comfortable racing in the rain.
Yeah, and it just looks like, everybody else looks a little uncomfortable, and he just looks like he's not afraid of the wet, not afraid of the puddles, and he looks really in control. We see Avery Dreher now led the warm-up this morning. He's caught this little group in front of him, and he's starting to come through this pack.
Yes, but Avery Dreher is, they're down in the order just a bit, and this gap continues to build. How do they get close enough that they can actually follow through, Roger?
You can just see Avery right now already trying to make a move on Rocco, getting a little bit impatient, and that's hard when it's wet. You want to make a pass, but the only open spot might be where a puddle is, so you have to wait until you can make that pass cleanly, and he does it.
Gus Rodeo right there still on the back of Rocco Landers as Avery Dreher has made that move. He's now hunting down a podium position. Here's Sean Unvarsky right in front of him.
And for Avery, this gives him the opportunity to not a lot of rain time on the Twins Cup bike. So for him, he also just came from the Junior Cup race, so it gives him an opportunity. He got to see the track before the race.
This is the battle for third and that final spot on the podium. We have 7 laps remaining, about six and a corner or so, Roger. But these guys are starting to figure out the racing line.
Yeah, you see Gus there as well, starting to make a move on Rocco. Rocco's starting to kind of struggle a little bit. Seems like everybody else is getting a little bit more comfortable and starting to move back down the order a little bit.
We've seen Rocco struggle in rain races before. He said that in New Jersey last year he may have figured out a little bit of how to be more comfortable, but he's so fast in the drive. Well, how is it so different on the bike?
It's just not comfortable. It's all about confidence. The rain is all confidence, and right now Rocco just doesn't have the confidence in the wet.
This is the battle for third. Avery Dreyer on that white bike right behind Shannon Vartsky on the darker bike in that picture. You see Avery make that move. He has now slotted himself into that third place running position right now, and he has a big gap in front of him to be able to close down to get onto the back of Jack Roach and Dominic Doyle, who continue to lead this field.
Avery's got clear track now if he's able to get going. You can see the gap there, how far he has to make up. We'll see what his lap time is now when he comes around next lap, now that he has clear track. Last lap he was a 53.1, and we'll see if he can match those 2 guys at the front.
As you watch the riders come down the hill, you saw the standing water that was there going through the S's, and the riders had to sit up a little bit. You could see that they weren't comfortable going through it.
Yeah, and when they go through the puddle, you'll notice they'll pick the bike up a little bit so they don't go through that puddle at any lean angles. We see Dominic Doyle just slowly stretching that lead out. Last lap, he was almost a second quicker than Jack Roach, and now he just needs to, Dominic just needs to be smooth and try to keep that gap and not take any unnecessary risk. Give up a little bit in those tricky spots and just, watch that pit board.
And ultimately, it does come down to the team that get the riders out there. Dominic Doyle certainly has a good one behind him, Lorette.
Leading the pack, and Dominic Doyle doing a great job. Nothing really changed in his riding style. I was told by Chuck, his team manager, he just needed to be smooth as long as with his teammate as Sonia Lloyd as well.
It's all about being smooth in these conditions. We've heard several riders say it so far today, Roger, is that they've got to just slow everything down, smooth it all out, and just try your hardest not to make any of those little mistakes when the track is what it is.
You can see Dominic, how he's just a little bit easier on the front brake. Going into the corners when he's braking, he's a little bit slower on the throttle, and that's what it's all about. Just slow down everything. Don't make any subtle movements, and watch the track. And the rain is so mentally draining, and it's that much harder when you're at the front because you're worrying about where the puddle's at. You're trying to manage the gap. You got Jack Roach there who's just hanging on, so every time you come around the pit board, you know that there's somebody back there. So it's just mentally draining, and Dominic right now is doing a great job.
I love the clear visor. You see Jack Roach's face, his eyes forward, watching what Dominic Doyle is doing right in front of him, where he's going next. You saw a graphic just a few moments ago. Dominic Doyle putting down the fastest race lap on lap number 4 is a 150.8. He is the first and only of the riders to dip into the 150 range. So Dominic just figuring it out as he continues to go. You said learn every single lap, and that learning is now being put to work, Roger.
Yeah, and Dominic looks like he's a lot more comfortable in the first part of the track. That first sector, he's a half a second quicker than Jack Roach, and then you kind of see this third sector. It's like Jack is a little bit closer than a little bit better than he is, and is able to close that gap down.
Dominic Doyle has a lead of over 2 seconds over Jack Roach, but look at that gap all the way back to third. These front 2 riders, they're really in a ride of their own right now, but Dominic Doyle, I mean, look at that picture. There is no pressure.
No pressure, and like I said, we'll see his pit board maybe. When he comes out here, he's going to see it's over 2 seconds this lap, plus 2. Means 5 laps left to L5, and he just needs to manage that. You don't have to win the race by 10 seconds. Just watch that pit board. Don't take any unnecessary risk. He's just slowly pulling away a half a second a lap.
So I'm looking through the rain on the lens of this camera. You can see that gap that he has right now. That's the distance between first and second. There's Jack Roach. But the rain right now, Roger, and the fact that there is no communication in the helmets for the riders from the teams, they have to look at those pit boards. But when it's so difficult to see, how challenging is it to to even see your pit board.
It can be really challenging, and also we heard a lot of riders today talking about their shield is fogging up, and that makes it even harder. Or when you're behind someone and you're in their spray, you can't really look over at your pit board. So when you're leading like Dominic, it gives you that opportunity where you're able to look over. You don't have to worry about anybody in front of you, that the track's clear. And you have to depend on that, because for Dominic, if he thinks somebody's behind him, he could push too hard.
Some great camera work. You can see the gaps that are forming out there on the racetrack and just how big of a lead Dominic Doyle has been able to build up right now as we are coming around to the second half of this race and getting things wrapped up. The confidence, I haven't even seen him look over his shoulder. Is he aware of how much of a gap he has other than the pit board?
I think he's looking at the lap times. Dominic slowed down a little bit that last lap. It could be that the rain's getting heavier, but also I think he knows, you know, what he's got to do. Dominic's got some experience now. He's been around for, you know, a couple years, and just take it easy, follow the pit board. Jack is doing a great job as well, not making any mistakes, and he's not making it easy on Dominic.
No, he also slowed down that lap, Jack Roach did. So when you're in second place and you see the rider in front of you and the work that they're putting in, do you eventually just settle down and take what you can?
When you're this far back with only 4 laps to go, he would have to take a lot of unnecessary risk to close that gap to Dominic. If all of a sudden Dominic slows down some, or you start feeling really good, then you're able to maybe close that gap. But he needs to worry about the guys behind him, because Avery and Gus Rodeo is actually kind of closing down that gap a second a lap.
Yes, that is third and fourth that you see coming down the hill right now, as you see Dominic Doyle leading out of the turn right now. So those are your top 4. We're not seeing a whole lot of pressure being put on anybody. Are they gapping themselves out, trying to avoid some of that spray, you think?
And Gus Rodeo, though, you see how hard he's pushing his last lap. He did a 50.4. That's the fastest lap of the race. So it kind of shows you that Dom is slowing down a little bit, being conservative. It's not the track getting wet, and that's just being a smart ride.
We go back up front to our leader, Dominic Doyle, and he really wanted to come into this weekend and make a gain in the championship point standings. He had a rough run at Daytona, didn't earn points in that second race.
Yeah, and that's what he needs to do. With yesterday being so close to the podium, you know, he's going to be disappointed to miss out on that. Dominic's got a red second sector now, so he's starting to pick up that pace a little bit as the track is starting to dry out just slowly. Each lap the riders go to the puddles, it kind of spreads the water out, and you can see with the lap times are just falling.
This is coming around down the hill.
You can just hear how easy he is when, you know, out of the throttle, the motor, not the high RPMs, coming out of the corners and just being so smooth. Even when you shift a little sooner, and just everything is just so slowed down as you watch them. Their movements coming through here from left to right. It looks like they're going slow, but it's just they're being as smooth as possible.
You see on the scoring pylon, Rocco Landers, who was our pole sitter, he's all the way down to 8th position. Rossi Moore, who started alongside him in 2nd, he is in the 7th place right now. So some of our leaders not nearly as comfortable in the rain as Dominic Doyle and Jack Roach, who continue to lead this field.
It looks like Rocco started a lot strong, like a lot more comfortable early on, and it seems like the other riders have gotten a lot faster toward the end of this race, and Rocco's kind of been the same speed.
That gap now building between Dominic Doyle and Jack Roach. It's at 3.6 seconds. Avery Dreyer, he has put himself up into the podium, the 3rd podium spot for the moment. Gus Rodeo, though, he's right behind him. He's closed that gap down to 1.2 seconds. So some movement still happening, and their podium is certainly not set yet, Roger.
Podium's not set. The 2 guys, 3rd and 4th, are definitely coming. Jack Roach had to pick up his pace because he could see on his pit board. Those guys were starting to close the gap. We only got a couple more laps left. We could get into lappers as well.
But Avery Dreyer, who is in 3rd place right now, You can't see him in this picture. The gap is just too big. He's over 4 seconds right now, back at 5 seconds, but he's gone red in Sector 1. He's gone his personal best in Sector 2. There he is on the best lap of the race for him so far. Avery Dreyer continues to push.
And he has to. You see Gus now is right on him, and if he wants to, Gus is getting just as fast, and for Gus, he's in a really good spot right now where he's able to follow Avery and kind of judge his speed off where Avery is. Avery's having to kind of set the pace, see the corners before Gus, and Gus is using his experience and closing down the gap as Gus just did the fastest lap of the race, that last lap, a 50.4, but also Avery did a 50.4 as well.
Yeah, that 50.4 for Avery also came on this lap. So the two of these riders, they want third place. They want to be on the podium.
And even the leaders as well, down into the 50s. So you can see Gus just slowly trying to make up that gap. It just seems like this first part of the track, you see the gap that Avery has pulled out. He's really good through this first sector.
And that was where he found the pace on that lap. But Gus Rodeo, he's really good in the second sector.
And that's the thing where the laps are winding down, and for Gus, he's in a really tough spot. Does he want to push it too far to try to get one more spot, or does he want to play it safe for the championship? And you can see that gap right now through that first sector. They're into the second one now, how Avery's able to pull a little bit of breathing room.
And Dominic Doyle continuing to lead. Can't even see another rider in the shot. 3.9 seconds was the difference the last time they came by, and he has certainly not given up any of the fight. He continues to drop his lap times, Roger.
Just being consistently 50.7, keeping that pit board. Once he's seen the gap was about 3.5 seconds, he kind of slowed down a little bit till the track got dry. Just a really mature ride for Dominic. He's gonna come up in some lap traffic. He needs to be patient. He has a big lead. He can pick his spots where he can make the pass.
It's only a 10-lap race, and able to catch the tail end of this field as he now comes to the white flag. You see Jack Roach crossing. We have 1 lap remaining in this 10-lap race.
And for the top 2 guys, they just want to make it around and see that checker flag. Avery still has a little heat on him from Gus, and Gus is going to try to put together a really good last lap. Best lap of the race, that last lap, Jack Roach. This track is getting better, and these riders are starting to figure it out.
And that last time by, Avery Dreyer did extend that lead that he has over Gus Rodeo to 0.7 of a second, up from just half a second. So he was able to get away just a little bit, but certainly not comfortable yet as you watch Dominic Doyle on this last lap, and there are riders ahead of him, which he hasn't had this entire race.
And Jack Roach last lap was a second quicker, so if Dominic comes into some trouble with these lappers, Jack might be able to close that up.
You can see the focus on Dominic's face. You can see his eyes forward. He certainly isn't going to give anything away. We've seen him come through the field before, so it's something that he has the experience with. Just stay smart. You heard Lorette say, his team manager Chuck told him, just be smooth.
You know, just pick his spots where he doesn't have to put himself in a bad spot. You can see he's just easily making the pass now. He's going to really slow it down here because of that puddle there. He didn't want to have too much front brake in his lane angle there.
A lot of respect from the other riders out on the racetrack as they let Dominic Doyle come down the hill, going through turn 12. He's going to come across the start-finish line. Dominic Doyle looking behind him, over his shoulder, a little bit of a wobble, but he takes the checkered flag. He takes the win for the second race here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. But you watch as Gus Rodeo, he makes the move around Avery Dreyer, and he comes home on that last step of the podium, Roger.
Yeah, for Gus there, never gave up and was able to barely get that last podium spot. What a great ride by Gus, showing his experience there, being patient, but able to end up on the podium.
Making that move right when it matters the most. You look at Dominic Doyle in the race that he put together, some very consistent lap times. He continued to improve each lap there in the middle, settled down just a little bit, but he came back strong.
He came back strong, and you could see the last 2 laps there, he knew he had the gap. He slowed down a little bit, not taking any risk. And Dominic's been riding really well this year, even toward the last year. He's really been patient, and he's eliminated a lot of mistakes.
Those are podium finishers you saw in that graphic. Dominic Doyle coming around. He was followed by Jack Roach, who at the start of this race made quick work of getting himself up front to a nice clean racetrack, and then Gus Rodeo making that move right at turn 12 on that last lap.
BellissiMoto Twins Cup is brought to you by BellissiMoto, where the biggest names in custom bike building shop for parts. And by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
And here is Dominic Doyle still on the cool down lap. You see looking over to other riders, giving a thumbs up, celebrating this victory that he was able to bring home coming down to turn 10. He's going to then pull down into pit lane and make his way over to victory lane. Let's take a look at the full results and how everybody stacked up behind our top 3. We're going to go through the whole field. You see the rain continuing to fall. Dominic Doyle, Jack Roach, Gus Rodeo. That was our podium, Roger.
Podium spot. You see Rossi Moore there, 7th. Great to see him back out there today. Rocco Landers, 8th. Alessandro DeMario there, 9th.
And take a look at 10th through 17th here. Sonia Lloyd, she was able to come up through the field right outside of the top 10. That's an impressive run for her in the 11th spot.
Impressive ride, back in the points again, just like Daytona. Trevor Standish, great to see him here this weekend, 12th.
And Jeffrey Perkins, 16th. Brad Fass in 17th place. But we did have a lot of riders out there. You see the gap that unfolded. 14th, still earning points, but they were finishing a lap down. Look at all the campers, all the fans that have been out here for the full season, got the fire going. Let's take a look at the season schedule. And I mentioned they already had one race in the BellissiMoto Twins Cup Championship. That happened back at Daytona. This was round number 2 of their season. After this, we're going to go on to Barbara Motorsports Park. That will be in the middle of May. And then at the end of May, go up to MotoAmerica, then Brainerd International Raceway to round out the summer. In June, September, go to Circuit of the Americas. It's a great opportunity for these riders.
Great opportunity. Barber Motorsports, Road America, some of the best tracks, and then be able to close it out at Circuit of Americas. And this championship battle, when we see the points come up, it's getting tight.
Yes, it's getting tight. It's 25 points to win, 20 for second place, 16 for third. So it's, you see as the season goes, you see them start to build around. But I think all of the riders are starting to make their way over to victory lane. Lorette Nicole, she's also made her way over there to the podium area to celebrate. I'm going to send it over to you, Lorette.
Jamie, a very emotional podium down here for Dominic Doyle, where Jason Pridmore actually came down from the tower to congratulate you. Dominic, congratulations. How did you open up that big gap?
I'm not really sure. I just kind of went about my race, and I was kind of running the same times this morning in warm-up. So I figured if I could just click those laps off constantly, and I kept checking my pit board, and I had a decent gap, so I was just ride my race and do these same laps, and we're here, so.
Amazing. And for those that may not know, Jason Pridmore ran down from the tower without a jacket to wrap you up. What's the relationship you have with him?
JB's been helping me this year so much. I've worked with him in the past, and I just really can't thank him enough for all his help this weekend. I got to thank my whole GIAC Moto Yamaha racing team. Nobi back in California, just say hello to him. And then everyone else that helps us get me here, CV Racing, Arai, BartCon, and everyone else that makes this possible.
I feel like the emotions are right there. What are you processing right now?
I'm just super happy. It's been a while since I've been up here, so super stoked to be up here and to reward the team for all their hard work.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, congrats to Dominic Doyle with his 2nd ever win. And Jack Roach putting on an amazing race. Jack, how was the vision out there?
There wasn't any. No, it was okay. I mean, like, I got a really good start. Like, it kind of, like, surprised myself. But other than that, no, honestly, it was the start, and then Dom came past me in the last turn, and he got me. But honestly, I'm so happy. I just can't give it up enough to the Wrench Motorcycle team, and I've been working so hard on the off season, and last 2 years at BSB, and obviously the wet weather has paid off.
Yeah, and what's some of the work that you've been putting off in the off season?
I actually train in a boxing gym, so I do a lot of sparring. I train fighters sometimes, keep them like warm. So yeah, mostly that, and then a lot of cycling and some gym work too.
Congratulations on second place to Jack Roach. And Gus Rodeo, no stranger to the podium in third place. Congratulations. So double podium this weekend. A very treacherous track, I would imagine. Where was it that you were able to settle in for your race?
Well, I was just kind of using the Aprilia traction control to my advantage, and it seems to work pretty good, but on the start, it kind of has a feature where if your traction control is on, then it won't let the bike wheelie, and to get to turn one first, it's got to wheelie a little bit. So same thing happened at Jersey, where my start was pretty bad, but kind of worked my way through. And yeah, I was just sitting there comfortable, and I didn't really want to get too close to anybody because then you can't see, and I kind of stayed steady, hit some lap traffic on the last lap, and I knew I had the last sector pretty much dialed in, so I made the pass in the last corner, and I was able to stand up here. So more points control today, and I couldn't really ask for a better race, and I got to thank the whole team for everything all weekend, and I have to give a special shout out to my amazing girlfriend Aubrey. Happy birthday. I love you so much.
Oh, happy birthday to Aubrey. At any point were you worried about hydroplaning?
Yeah, through turn 4 to 5, that's where the 3, 4, 5, that's where the puddles were the worst, and I noticed that off the start, but there's nothing you can really do about it except be careful, and that's really it. You just got to remember where the bad spots are at, take your time, and stay smooth, and you'll be up here.
Okay, Gus Rodeo, congratulations for third place. So congratulations to our Twins Cup podium. Jamie?
You could hear the emotion that was in Dominic Doyle's voice there. Let's take a look at the highlights, Roger.
Yeah, we see race 2 there. You're going to see Jack Roach on the inside of the second row getting a really good start there. Looks like he was going to pull away early on in the race. You see Dominic Doyle there on the blue bike. Coming into the screen, we've seen some guys sliding around on that first lap. Dominic Doyle was able to make his move there in the last corner, and was just from there just slowly pulled away. Rocco Landers there getting past by Avery Dreher. Rocco kept slowing down, fell back through the field. You see Gus Rodeo making his way, showing that experience, championship contender, working his way toward the front. Avery Dreher now moves his way into third. He looked like he might have the pace to chase down the leaders, but Dominic Doyle just didn't put a wheel wrong. Read his pit board, slowly pulled away, knew he had a big lead, didn't take any risk, and just put in a solid ride for him and Jack Roach. You see Gus Rodeo there ending up on the podium on the last lap, coming out of the last corner.
Just an amazing amount of focus for Dominic Doyle. We'll be back with more right after this.